during that time, but there was a male facility called Alto where like all of the sexual assault used to take place. Like they say.
All right, you kids get to bed. I get the storybook.
There is a place in the state of Georgia where no criminal ever wants to go. That place is called Alto State Prison, formerly Lee Arrendale in Alto, Georgia. If you come here, you surely won't make it out.
Stay tuned for Tales from the Toe.
Hey, it's the bad boy here, Will Smith, seeing if y'all already like this video yet. If not, then go ahead and slap that like button like Nipsey slapped that dude at BET. And you may as well subscribe to this Tesla Time Machine channel. Cause if you don't, then I'll come on the stage when you're hosting an event. And do you like I did that boy Chris Rock? Calm down, I'm just playing.
Tales from the Toe. Invasion of the Booty Snatchers. Alto State Prison, a behemoth of concrete and steel, loomed like a fortress against the country backdrop of the setting sun on the warm Georgia evening. Within its walls, a shadowy, horny realm thrived, where the echoes of desperation mingled with the whispers of fear. In B Dorm, which most of the prison population nicknamed the Booty Dorm, the darkest corners housed the most sinister of predatory inmates. A gang of hardened men with life sentences, each bearing the weight of their past sins. The ironic and insane thing was that this gang of young men were all actually active members in opposing gangs like the Bloods, Crips, and Gangster Disciples. But they all came together in this one dorm and formed into one unnamed gang, which should be called nothing other than the Booty Snatchers. These disgusting bandits who terrorized Alto's B Dorm were led by a young Crip OG, originally from Torrance, California, known only as Shadow, who was a 6'1" 19-year-old who weighed close to 275 pounds, which gave him the appearance of an older man. This impromptu gang ruled B Dorm with an iron fist, preying on the vulnerable inmates unlucky enough to get housed in there like wolves stalking their prey. They were masters of manipulation, weaving webs of deceit and intimidation to maintain their stranglehold over the dormitory. Among their ranks stood a Waycross, Georgia native named Jason, an unaffiliated, towering figure who was an inch taller than Shadow with brown eyes as cold as steel. Once a promising athlete, his fall from grace had left him embittered and resentful. His football dreams shattered like glass against the unforgiving pavement after putting his abusive stepdad 6 feet into the ground with a half of clip from an AK-47 after the drunken man knocked 2 of his mother's teeth out of her mouth during a 3 a.m. argument. Then there was Carlos, a 5'5" Mexican Crip who was a man of few words but fierce loyalty. His allegiance to Shadow ran deep, rooted in the bonds forged through shared hardship and adversity due to knowing each other on the streets of Atlanta. And finally, there was a 5'8" dark brown-skinned 21-year-old named Badass, the youngest and most volatile of the group, who got his name from Louisiana rapper Boozy Badass because he looked just like him, even down to the white crud that formed at the corners of his mouth when talking. Badass's quick temper and penchant for violence made him a force to be reckoned with, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Together, the 4-man gang prowled the ranges and day room in B Dorm like predators, forcing weaker inmates into waiting cells as they ripped their prison-issued uniforms off and had their way with them, sometimes even 3 or 4 at a time, which was a bloody mess when jars of Vaseline ran out. Their presence cast a pall of fear over these weaker prisoners who dared to deny them their sexual pleasures. They were the kings of their domain, and none dared to challenge the authority of the Booty Snatchers. It was in this crucible of despair that a new inmate arrived one April afternoon, his eyes wide with fear and uncertainty as he carried his thin prison mattress and blanket full of personal property to one of the second-floor cells in B Dorm. Peter, a 17-year-old high school wrestler from Athens, Georgia, strongly resembled the rap god Eminem circa the year 2000 because he didn't have any facial hair and had platinum blonde hair just like Slim Shady wore back at the turn of the millennium. With a troubled past and 10 years for a recent vehicular manslaughter, Peter found himself thrust into the heart of darkness, a lamb amidst wolves.
Like, you finna get transferred. I was like, all right, you know what I'm saying? I've been down a little bit. I kind of know what's going on, how to move and everything. So they were like, I remember my roommate was an old school cat, so I went and asked, I was like, where I'm going? They were like, Lee Arrendale. I was like, okay, I ain't never heard of Lee Arrendale. So I come back, I'm packing my stuff up. He was like, where you going? I said, Lee Arrendale. He said, So I'm packing my stuff.
What you mean? Oh.
So he, you know how old school kids.
From the moment he crossed the threshold, Peter knew he was marked for trouble due to being a white boy in a predominantly black and Latino prison, but the wannabe WWE star had one thing on his side: size. Peter was born with a pituitary gland defect and was already standing 7 feet 1 inches and still growing due to being under 18. Although he was the same height as NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal, he wasn't as big, weighing only 237 pounds, but his size was still formidable. And this caused the booty snatchers to form a plan before just running up on the white giant and taking his cheeks from him. The gang's eyes followed his every move, their predatory instincts honed to a razor's edge during Peter's first week in B-dorm. At first, Peter tried to keep his head down, to blend into the shadows and avoid drawing attention to himself, but being the only 7-footer on the compound meant fate had other plans. One fateful night, as the prison walls echoed with the sounds of distant screams, Peter found himself in the crosshairs of the gang's wrath. A simple misunderstanding over a poker game, which Shadow tricked the giant into playing, escalated into a full-blown confrontation, the air crackling with tension as tempers flared. In the chaos that ensued, Peter stood his ground, his heart pounding like a drumbeat in the darkness, refusing to be cowed by fear and pay a cheating Carlos, whom he clearly saw change cards during the last deal. Amidst the chaos of being yelled at by the 4 baddest men in the dorm, Peter saw his chance. With a swift motion, he lashed out, striking back against Carlos and Shadow with a ferocity born of desperation, knocking both men down as he grabbed Jason and put him in a deathly chokehold he learned in the 9th grade. The tide turned in an instant, the balance of power shifting like sand beneath their feet. The gang, once untouchable, now found themselves at the mercy of their prey. In the aftermath of the uprising, as dawn broke over the horizon and the prison walls stood silent witness to the turmoil within, Peter emerged victorious. His triumph was not measured in bloodshed or retribution, but in the resilience of the human spirit, in the indomitable will to rise above adversity and forge a new path forward. Or so he thought. Later that night, as Peter lay in his top bunk, eyes closed but not asleep as he lay reminiscing about a girl named Amy he used to date, he felt 4 hands gripping his tree trunk-like legs, and before he could retaliate against being grabbed, Shadow and Carlos pulled him off of the top bunk, all 237 heavy pounds, causing him to fall to the hard, grimy concrete floor, his big head hitting the sturdy surface with a loud thud, knocking him unconscious immediately. When he awakened an hour later, he was in one of the dorm's shower stalls, hands tied behind him, and without any clothes on, and immediately winced in pain as he clenched his buttocks as blood seeped from in between his battered cakes. Quickly putting 2 and 2 together, the battered giant cried in agony as he realized what had happened to him, and before his shouts for help could be noticed by the prison officer in the booth a few hundred feet away, the booty snatchers all came into the shower to knock the helpless giant out again and go in for a second round of nasty fun.